Hi guys and gals, it's Kristen. I told y'all yesterday that we were going to be an hour early today, but I forgot to put it in the email that I sent around. So forgive me, those of you who wait for the emails to know if it's going to be at an odd time or not. But yeah, we're at kind of an odd time today. We're an hour early because every couple of weeks I go into town on Tuesdays because we get books for our kids from a private library collection in town, and it's only open on certain days and at certain times of the week. And so I try and head in every 2 weeks to hit their open time. So that's what I'm going to do as soon as we're done here. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about RH issues during pregnancy and birth, and I'm hoping that maybe it won't be quite so exciting as it was on here yesterday when we talked about eating date fruit during pregnancy, and apparently putting date as your scope title is the wrong thing to do on Periscope, at least if you want mature people to join you. But I do think that scope turned out really, really well, and Scott's already got it up on YouTube, and I'm hoping to get it up on the website this afternoon. Scott's got everything ready for me. I just have to go add descriptions to a bunch of the scopes, but we'll get those there. And you can always check out scope replays at naturalbirth.tv. That's like your little shortcut to get to the scopes on my site. Speaking of my site, I'm Kristen. I run naturalbirthandbabycare.com. I'm a mama of 7, and I'm passionate about birth and babies and pregnancy issues. It's aside from being a wife and mom, it's what I feel like my purpose here in life is to help moms have healthy babies. So I'm a childbirth educator, and I've run the website for almost a decade now. In just a couple weeks, it will have been a decade that I've been running this website, which is kind of crazy but fun. Okay, so anyways, today what we're going to talk about is RH issues. And I know that having RH negative blood is something that it has implications for other things, but it's something that I'm only going to talk about in the context of pregnancy and birth. So I really haven't, I know because I've been part of a couple of communities for people who have RH negative blood just because I was asked to be part of those in regards to pregnancy, but I haven't looked into those other issues. So I'm only going to talk specifically as it pertains to pregnancy and birth today. So first, let's talk about what does it mean to have RH negative blood? What is that? And we touched on this a little bit last week when we talked about gender testing in pregnancy, because one of the tests that they do during pregnancy can help find out what baby's RH genotype is, and it also tells you what gender your baby is. So that's where it came up, and I decided it would be a good thing to do. So most of us know that we have a particular blood type. So we have an ABO blood type. So you might have type A, you might have type B, you might be type AB, or you could be type O blood. So most of us are aware of that, but there's also something else that's listed when people talk about their blood type, which is if they're positive or negative. So you might be A positive or A negative. I'm A negative. You might be O positive or O negative. Scott is O positive. My daughters Honor and Sadie are both O negative. I feel bad that I had negative daughters, but I did. All my other kids, well, Galen is also O negative, but he's a boy, so it doesn't matter as much for him. And then all my other kids are positive. I have 1 A positive and then 3 others who are all O positive. So, and I know all my kids' blood types because blood type is important when you're an RH negative woman. Now, why is that? There are various other blood type incompatibilities and issues. Like there can be some ABO incompatibilities, but they tend to be milder. They don't cause as much problems. And then there are some that cause more problems, such as KEL incompatibilities, and those are really outside of my sphere of influence. But in case you've hopped on wondering about those, the very best starting place that I can tell you is on Baby Center. And it really takes a lot for me to say that because really, guys, I think that Baby Center is like the most craptastic site in the world. I mean, they have some really good information, but their natural birth information is, it's all lip service. And I kind of resent that. That's what women are getting for a picture of natural birth when there's people, who really care about natural birth and who really want to help moms have a natural birth. And moms never find our resources because Baby Center is like the elephant in the room of all things birth and baby care online. And no offense to those of you Baby Center people, but you should have somebody who's passionate about natural birth write about natural birth. Not just somebody who was paid to write about it or somebody who was paid to be on your advisory committee. Have somebody who really can help somebody have a natural birth, write about natural birth. But anyways, we'll stop going down that rabbit hole because they do have a forum for ladies who have like an ABO compatibility or who are dealing with KEL or even RH incompatibilities, who are dealing with a sensitized pregnancy. If that's you, you know what all of that means. They have it's a forum. It's not an article, so just search for their sensitized pregnancy forum. And really, I think it's great because of the community that has been built up around it. So that is a good resource if you're looking for those things like KEL, or if you already know that you're going to have a sensitized pregnancy. Those things are really good to look for. Thank you for the share, Billy. So we're going to talk about RH. So the RH is one factor, one possible thing that can go on. And so like I said, you can be either A positive or A negative, or B positive, B negative, AB positive, AB negative, O positive, or O negative. So it doesn't matter what your ABO type is. You're either positive or negative. So if you're positive, it means that you have the RH factor, which is the rhesus factor, is in your blood. If you're negative, that's absent. The reason why it matters is it matters because if you're negative, your body can become sensitized to positive blood. In other words, your body sees that blood as an invader, and it forms antibodies against it. The places where this really matters are in birthing or in being pregnant with a baby, and also in blood transfusions. And so that's why when they catalog blood for blood transfusions, they're really careful. They want to match you with the donor who's also negative, who has a compatible blood type, so that you don't become sensitized. They didn't know about this originally, and people would become sensitized, but now they do. The reason why it matters in pregnancy and birth is because if a mom becomes sensitized, it doesn't usually impact that pregnancy. But if an RH negative mom is pregnant with an RH positive baby, and she becomes sensitized, it doesn't usually impact that pregnancy, but there is a possibility that it will impact a future pregnancy with an RH positive baby, because the mom's body will see that baby's RH factor as an invader, and it will send antibodies that attack that baby's blood supply, and then the baby can't survive. So that's why it's a problem. Billy, they test for blood type usually for a pregnant woman, they do it at what's called the prenatal workup, is kind of the nickname for it, but those blood tests that they do initially when a pregnant woman first goes in for her first checkup, or maybe the second checkup, and they draw several vials of blood, they're testing for any number of things, but they do a blood type test there. If you've ever donated blood, they do a blood type test there. And then they also have, I don't know if I've got one with me. We just had this done with our Honor, or not with our Honor, with our Sadie, our newer baby. She's 9 months old now. But and I had one of her Eldon cards. It's a little card, and just like a little paper card, and it's got some spots on it, and they do a prick on baby's heel, like on the heel of the foot, not the heel of the hand. But they can do a prick on the baby's heel and test the baby's blood that way. They put the spots in, and depending on how it coagulates, there's like a special substance on the card. It can tell ABO type and rhesus type, so whether they are RH negative or RH positive. And for like a grown person, you can do a finger prick with the same card. It's called an Eldon card, E-L-D-O-N, Eldon card, and I think it's actually one word. Eldon card is one word, and you can buy them on Amazon. But if you're having it done in the doctor's office, they're usually going to do a blood draw. Our Sadie's Eldon card was kind of inconclusive. They weren't positive on it, and so we actually had her blood tested because it was important for us to know. And they did. I can't believe the phlebotomist was able to do a blood draw on a newborn, but she did it. out of a vein in Sadie's little arm. So it's relatively simple. It's just a blood test or an Eldon card, which is just literally a prick. So that's how you can test for it if you don't know. But in routine prenatal care, generally, we know because it's done as one of those routine initial prenatal tests. And it's one of those tests that we can talk about prenatal tests on another scope. But knowing your blood type, I think, is a good thing for any pregnant woman. So especially if you don't know your blood type and if this is your first pregnancy, even if you're going to decline other prenatal tests, I think it's good to have that prenatal workup done because it gives you that information, and they test for some other things like vitamin D levels and all that sort of thing too. Okay, so back to where we were with baby. So once a mom's body is possibly sensitized to baby, then her body could attack baby. And so that's why it's important to know, to know blood type. The way that we take care of this now, see, we didn't used to understand all this, and it wasn't all that long ago that we didn't understand all this. I mean, just 50 or 60 years ago, none of this was known. And so women would have a first baby that was totally healthy, and then they would lose babies. They would have babies who were stillborn, or they would have multiple miscarriages, and then they'd have a healthy baby. And then they'd have stillborn babies. And it was just heartbreaking. One of my instructors, her name's Gloria LeMay, she's a midwife, one of my teachers in my school, she says that she can still remember, like when she was a young woman, hearing the older women in her neighborhood talk about neighbors who had lost babies like this. And what was happening was the moms had become sensitized with an Rh positive baby, and then their bodies were just not letting them carry an Rh positive baby, or they become sensitized to an Rh positive baby. I don't know if I said that right. Their bodies would not let them carry an Rh positive baby after that. They would attack, the antibodies would attack the baby because they were going after that Rh positive blood. Then the mom would get pregnant with an Rh negative baby, and there's no problem for that. So she would have a healthy baby, but then maybe have other losses. And they really didn't understand why this was happening, and now they do. Now, it has to do with daddy too. So daddy is important in this, because if mom is Rh negative and daddy is Rh negative, it's virtually impossible to get an Rh positive baby. It can happen, but it's super, super rare. So if daddy is Rh negative, then it almost never happens. Now, if daddy is Rh positive, there are two different chances. So a dad could be heterogeneous, so he has two Rh positive alleles. So he's Rh positive, Rh positive. He's only ever going to produce a baby that is Rh positive. So he and mom, even though she's Rh negative, the baby is always going to be Rh positive because it's dominant. Or a dad, no, okay, so the first, all this genetic stuff is confusing. Dad can be homogeneous, so he has two Rh positives. Or he can be heterogeneous, which means Rh positive and then recessive gene is Rh negative, or the recessive allele is Rh negative. And then there's like a 50-50 chance that baby could be Rh positive or baby could be Rh negative. That's the case with Scott and I, is because we actually have 3 Rh negative kids and only 1 Rh positive kid out of the biological children that we have together. So I have like a 50-50 chance with every baby of them being Rh negative. My first 3 kids, who Scott has adopted, but they have a different biological dad, they all 3 are Rh positive. So I suspect that that their dad was just, Rh positive, Rh positive. Okay, so I know it's all confusing, and I actually have an article that I'll try and remember to put on the Scope page, naturalbirthandbabycare.com/scope. I'll try and remember to put a link to the article, because sometimes seeing all of this written out is easier. But the implications of this are, we have to, what do we do? How do we solve this problem? And when they figured out what the problem was, they created something called Rhogam, which is an immunization. Essentially, what it is purified blood plasma from somebody who is carrying the antibody, and then it's purified and given in a tiny, tiny, tiny amount to an Rh negative mom. They do not know exactly how or why it works. One of the theories is that mom's body says, oh, there's antibodies, so I don't need to make any more. That seems like a likely explanation, but they're not 100% positive that's what's going on. But Rhogam has been proven to be very effective at stopping sensitization from happening. So once mom is sensitized, things are a lot dicier. It's a lot tougher. So Rhogam is aimed at prevention. Let's stop the sensitization from happening. And it's thought to provide protection for about a 12-week window. That's why pregnant women are routinely given Rhogam at 28 weeks in pregnancy. And then again, they're given at 28 weeks, or they're given right after their baby's born, within 72 hours of their baby being born. It's only useful within 72 hours of a sensitization, because after that, mom's body is starting to build antibodies on its own, and its protection is thought to last for about 12 weeks. So that's the reasoning behind the timing for this, okay? Now, an important caveat to all of this is that in pregnancy, a mom and a baby's blood never mix, okay? So if we pretend like this is mom's blood supply and this is baby's blood supply from the placenta, okay, then there is a barrier here, and the nutrients from mom's side diffuse over to baby's side. So the blood never mixes. So in the course of a normal pregnancy, sensitization does not happen because the blood never mixes. And it's because it's an immunization. It's injecting human plasma into a mom. So I mean, there's actually a lot of issues going on with Rhogam, and there are some people who don't think that it's a totally risk-free panacea. And that's why. Why there's, and I'm going to run out of time on this scope, but I can do a continuation where I bring some of the research. Sarah Wickham is somebody to look up if you want more research. But going back to baby's blood and mom's blood don't mix. And then also in the course of a normal birth, I know it's hard to believe because we think that birth, there's blood in birth. But in the course of a normal gentle birth, mom and baby's blood supplies actually never mix either. Now, if a mom has a miscarriage, if a mom has a cesarean section, if a mom suffers any sort of trauma, like, you fall down the stairs or you're in an auto accident or something, there's a possibility that that blood is going to mix. Those are the times that I think that having Rhogam is a good idea. So if you've had some sort of trauma like that. And then also postpartum, even with the most gentle birth, sometimes mixing happens. But the reason why we hesitate on Rhogam is because it's injecting a human blood product into a mom's body. And it's ultra purified, so the likelihood of some sort of bloodborne illness being transmitted are low. But also, it's human plasma, and there are women who have a reaction to it. Also, there are some people who, for religious reasons or whatever, won't accept human blood products, so it's not an option for them. But yeah, women have sensitivities to Rhogam and can have a bad reaction to Rhogam. So those are some reasons why moms might not have it. Now, you get people who are on both sides of these issues vehemently, because there are women who can remember losing babies and who would have done anything they could to have prevented the loss of that baby. But then there are other people who are wary about, do I want to inject a human blood product into my body? I think that it's a really personal decision, and like I said, I'm running out of time on this scope. So we can do a continuation of this scope, and I'll bring with me a list of some of the things to consider. I do think it's a personal decision to make. I can share that my decision has been to decline Rhogam prenatally because I don't feel comfortable doing that when there's a baby in my womb and we don't know, all of the implications of it. However, and also it's unlikely, like I said, it's very unlikely in pregnancy for the blood to mix. Now, if I were to be in a car accident during pregnancy, I would go to the hospital and say, please give me a Rhogam injection. If I were to take a bad fall or anything like that, if I were to have a miscarriage, I would probably request a Rhogam injection then. And I also choose to have one postpartum if my baby is Rh positive. Now, I usually like to have cord blood tested or have my baby tested so I don't get, it's a shot in the butt. It kind of hurts. So I don't get a shot that hurts and that is unnecessary. If it's not necessary. But I have chosen after all of my Rh positive babies to have it, even though I would say that I've had gentle births with all of them. To me, once my baby is born and it's just me, it's just my body, I'm not injecting something that has any sort of antibody towards my baby into my body while my baby is in my body, if that makes sense, because that's what you're doing with Rhogam. You're injecting an antibody to your baby's blood, even though it's tiny, into your body, and just, do we know completely the implications of that? But it's one of those things that's generally regarded as safe in obstetrics. So I always advise my students to make up their own mind, and that generally it is thought to be safe to give it at 28 weeks, and many moms do that. If you are Rh negative, I would encourage you to ask them to test daddy too, so that you know if it's necessary, because if daddy's also Rh negative, there's just no reason for it. But a lot of moms choose to have it postpartum. And again, we can go over some of the implications of Rhogam, why we might want to hesitate, why we might want to go ahead, even though there are some unknowns with giving it, and there are some things that were never completely adequately tested because it solved a big problem. But as we've seen in the past, sometimes we find a solution for something and we just jump in, and later we realize maybe there are some implications there. One thing I will say before we end it is one of the things that they think could cause mom and baby's blood to mix and sensitization. Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I think that getting it after a miscarriage is probably wise to do, just because, that's trauma for you and your body. It was the end of a pregnancy, not in the way that it was intended to be ended. So I think that it was wise to get it. And some moms want to wait a period before they try to conceive. Some moms want to do that anyways after a miscarriage. But, well, with a threatened miscarriage, again, you did what you thought was best because, there could have been abruptions or something like that going on. So you made a choice that you felt was right. And I think that sometimes we have to balance risks. And when we make the choice that we think is right, possibly with a threatened miscarriage, there was a possible placenta abruption. So maybe there was some mixing there. And, you did what you thought was right. And so you can have peace with that decision. So one more thing to say about natural birth, or, about the birthing process and the mixing of blood. One of the things that they think might cause a mix of blood that wasn't normally caused in the past is early cord clamping, immediate cord clamping. So what happens when we immediately clamp the cord is that like 60% of the baby's blood is still in the placenta and in the cord. So that's 60% of your baby's blood supply. Your baby only has 40% of his or her blood. It was circulating down through the cord and into baby and then back up, and then all of a sudden it can't do that. And then there's all this blood just engorged in the placenta and the cord. And there are some thoughts that perhaps that could cause literally a backup in the blood supply, and that could possibly cause moms to become sensitized who wouldn't have become sensitized before, because all of a sudden here's this big backup of Rh positive blood that's supposed to be, emptying out into your baby. So your baby has all of his or her blood, has all of his or her iron stores and everything. And your body isn't stuck trying to deal with all of that. So that's just something to consider as far as birth goes. Like I said, for me personally, even having gentle births, even having delayed cord clamping, I've decided to get Rhogam within 72 hours for each of my babies. But I do think that it's important to point out that maybe early cord clamping has far-reaching implications, and it's not supported by evidence, by the way, to clamp babies' cords early. But that is a scope for another day. Now I'm going to head out because I have errands to run, and I have a little one who is really eager to go out with Mama. So I'm going to head out. Tomorrow is our day off, so we will be back on Thursday, and I'll take a look at what I had lined up for the scopes this week, and maybe we'll just continue this one and take some looks at Rhogam specifically. But this will go up on YouTube shortly, and hopefully by this afternoon I'll have this and all of this week's scopes up. You can head over to naturalbirth.tv to check those out. I enjoy having you on here, Billy. And also, if you're interested, if you want to take natural childbirth classes or learn more about what it means to have a gentle birth, check out my classes. They're online classes, so you can take them anywhere. mamababybirthing.com. That's MAMA babybirthing.com. I would love to have you in the class, and I'd love to chat with you on our class call next week. That's on Monday, and I will talk to you on Thursday for our scope then.